all your years of paying tax. You helped us overcome our darkest hour. You, along with every other loyal taxpayer, helped build this nation. Thank you for every life you saved and for every risk you braved, for giving our future generation a healthy start. When you saw many of our vulnerable communities, you provided for them. When you saw our healthcare workers on the front lines battling COVID, you rose to the occasion and gave them the tools to save lives. Without your tax compliance, we wouldn't be able to fight a good fight. Thank you for contributing to the important services our vulnerable communities rely on every day. To all taxpayers and traders, continue to pay your tax because it matters to millions of South Africans who depend on it. Your tax matters.
A very good evening to all our viewers and a warm welcome to Hashtag Your Tax Matters, the program that is designed at improving your tax compliance and making your tax life easy. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us this evening. Our agenda today is as follows. Welcome address by Ms. Helen Monakgotla, pay-as-you-earn presentation by Mr. Martin Naidu, how-to videos by Mr. Fulufelo Mandiwana, question and answer session that will be facilitated by Mr. Moses Hlongwana, and lastly, closing remarks by Ms. Monakgotla. Ms. Monakgotla began her SARS career as an auditor and is now a pay-as-you-earn specialist. With 14 years of experience. Prior to joining SARS, she worked in the private sector as a tax consultant and a pay-as-you-earn compliance officer. Helen has a national diploma in cost and management accounting from Wits Technikon, a higher certificate in advanced principle and application of South African taxation from Rand Afrikaans University, a higher diploma in tax law from the University of Wits, a higher certificate in mining tax law from University of Wits, and higher certificate in criminal justice and forensic investigation from University of Johannesburg. Over to you, Ms. Monakgotla.
Greetings, and a warm welcome. And thanks to the program director for allowing me this opportunity to take you through what will be shared this evening. I also want to welcome our SMME employers, payroll administrators, different stakeholders, participants, and our fellow SARS employees. The purpose of this webinar is to outline, share, educate, and encourage the employers to file the annual reconciliation timelessly. And also, we strive to improve, as SARS, we strive to improve our system to align with modern technology to assist employers with simple method of submitting their annual reconciliation and the monthly pay-as-you-earn returns. And we have also seen in the past an increase in compliance in this space and willingness of taxpayers to comply with their tax obligations. On the same note, we've also seen a decline, which is mainly due to, in the pay-as-you-earn space, mainly due to the pandemic. And we can all agree that this is just beyond our control for both SARS and the taxpayers. The main factors that affected this decline is the reduction of workforce in some organizations. And we've also seen some organizations having to cut off the working hours for its employees, and some organizations having to cut some of the staff. And also, secondly, employers reducing their pay-as-you-earn payment with the employment tax incentive. The next speaker will just touch base on how this incentive works. But maybe in short, government introduced the employment tax incentive in order to encourage employers to employ the unemployed youth in order to eradicate or eliminate unemployment. Our key message for tonight, presentation is to make it easier for employers to comply, and also to ensure that they submit the annual reconciliation timelessly. This is our biggest priority. We are committed as SARS to assist employers with smooth submission and no doubt to improve our credibility and integrity to provide excellent services through our service charter. And I hope you enjoy the presentation, and over to you, the program director. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helen, for a warm welcome in this cold weather. Now we'll move to our second agenda point, which is pay-as-you-earn presentation by Mr. Martin Naidu. Mr. Martin Naidu holds a diploma in information and technology. He started his career at SARS in 2007 as a call center agent, dealing with income tax related queries. Because of his zest for learning, he received training on income tax, value-added tax, and pay-as-you-earn. In addition, he's a self-taught e-filing technician expert. In 2010, he joined Branch Operations Engagement, responsible for tax education, outreach, and campaigns. His role within taxpayer education team entails giving tax education presentations to individuals, practitioners, the government departments, and small businesses. He also works on developing training material for SARS. Please note that while Mr. Naidu is giving us presentation, you can send your questions to PAYE questions@sars.gov.za. I repeat, PAYE questions@sars.gov.za. All questions will be addressed during a question and answer session by a panel of experts. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Naidu.
Okay, thank you, Program Director. Good afternoon, one and all. My name is Martin Naidu. Today I'll be taking you through the PAYE basic compliance presentation. For the purpose of the presentation is merely to provide information in an easily understandable format and is intended to make provisions of legislation more accessible. The information, therefore, has no binding legal effect, and the relevant legislation must be consulted in the event of any doubt as to the meaning or application of any provision. SARS vision is to build a smart, modern SARS by 2024, which is trusted and admired by all. In line with the vision, we have 9 strategic objectives, and 3 out of that is what we can influence. 1 is to make it easy and simple to comply. When we talk about making it easy and simple to comply, we're referring to providing tools like our e-filing, our Mobi app, our EasyFile software for you to utilize to comply. Also, we create awareness and clarity and certainty by providing webinars, information on our SARS website, guides on our SARS website, and our YouTube channel. If we're giving you the information and we're providing you with the tools, it makes it hard not to comply. There are other mechanisms that we can also use to bring about influence, like developing our systems, developing our workforce, using data provided to assist taxpayers, working with stakeholders to improve our tax systems to make it easier for you to work with. So all these objectives that we have in place is what we want to achieve for SARS in the near future. So the points that we will discuss today is the registration requirements, the completions of the returns, the declarations, reconciliations, the payment process, the employment tax incentives, the deregistration process, PAYE admin penalties, record keeping. We'll go through EasyFile basic rules, and plus we'll also have an EMP 501 demonstration by our INI's team. So if we're looking at the PAYE requirements, now in order for you to establish PAYE, there need to be 3 key factors. Okay, that's the employer, the employee, and remuneration. In layman's terms, is that the employer will employ an individual, require them to perform a specific task, and then remunerate them in form of an income. Now, this income can be in cash or otherwise. So it can be either a monetary value, or when we say otherwise, it can be an item of value. Like, for example, the employer might state, do this kind of task for me. I don't have anything in cash to pay you, but here's a laptop. That laptop would have a monetary value on it. So remember, 3 key factors: employer, employee, remuneration. Okay. Now, in order for an employee to register for PAYE, they need to register for PAYE within 21 days of becoming an employer. Okay. And in order for them to be considered to register for PAYE, they must have employees that will be liable for normal tax. That means employees that are getting paid above the tax threshold. Now, a tax threshold, for example, is for the period of 1st of March this year, 2022, up until the end of February 2023. That will be the 2023 tax year. Okay, so if you're looking at somebody that's under the ages of 65, that's 65 years and younger, that's the tax threshold for that is 91,250 rand. For somebody that's 65 years and older, but not older than 75 years of age, it's 141,250. And if you're having a look at somebody that's 75 years and older, their tax threshold is 157,900. So when we're talking about a threshold, it's an amount at where tax should start being deducted. Now, if we had to take somebody who's under the age of 65 and we had to take their 91,250 and make it into a monthly salary, that means it's an amount of 7,604 rand. Okay, so if somebody earns below 7,604 rand, then no tax would be deducted. But if they earn above that amount, then the employer will be required to register within 21 days. When they register for PAYE, they will be provided with a PAYE reference number. Now, that PAYE reference number will start at 7. It's about 10 digits long, okay, and it will be assigned or allocated to the employer. Then we have the skills development registration. Now, to register for skills development levy, okay, employee's total remuneration has to exceed 500,000 for the next 12-month period. Okay, so when an employee is liable to pay SDL, they must register with SARS for skills development. Now, the purpose of skills development levy is for the employer to improve and develop skills of the employees. By doing so, they would be allocated based on the industry to a specific SETA, which is a skills education training authority. So the employer will be required to take their employees, put them into learnerships, let them attain some skills, get a qualification. And this is by, if you're taking an employee, put them in a training program and put them back into a working environment, it then increases the productivity of the employer. So the purposes of the SDL is to develop staff. SARS does the administration and we do the collection of the SDL, and the percentage of the calculation would be 1% of the total payroll itself that the employer will need to deduct and pay over to SARS. Then we have UIF. Okay, UIF is the Unemployment Insurance Fund. With the registration for UIF, how it generally works is 2 factors. If you register with SARS, that means for PAYE, that means you have employees that are liable to pay tax and you register for SARS for PAYE, then you would get registered for UIF. That means you will deduct PAYE and UIF and pay it over to SARS on a monthly basis. However, you're still required to register with the UIF Commission and submit what we call a U19 form to them. That is just a declaration to advise the employees that you have and the amount of UIF you're deducting for each employee. If, for example, you are not registered for SARS for PAYE purposes, then the employer has to register directly with the UIF Commission. Okay? The deductions of the UIF, it's 1% employer, 1% employee. And with regards to the UIF, it's just a short-term relief for workers just in case they get unemployed or they leave work due to ill health. So whatever contribution that they would have paid towards the UIF commission, they can go to the UIF department and allow for them to claim that amount back. For the registration of PAYE, there's two methods that can be utilized. One, by appointment basis. That means you need to make an appointment. You can either do the appointment telephonically, or in very extreme circumstances, will you be allowed an appointment at a SARS office to do a registration for PAYE. Alternatively, you can utilize our SARS e-filing system, which is our preferred means of registration. So if you are registered for an e-filing for income tax purposes, then it'll be easy for you to log onto your e-filing and go to the RAB 01. So if you're looking to register on e-filing for PAYE, you're just going to go to organizations, maintain SARS registered details, maintain tax products. You're going to select payroll taxes, and then you're going to add a new product registration. So you follow those steps and you can register online. And as I said, it's the preferred means for your registration for PAYE. Now, once you register for PAYE and you've been allocated a PAYE number, as per our fourth schedule of the Income Tax Act number 58 of 1962, the employee is then required to deduct and withhold employees tax. Now, in order for you to withhold employees tax, there's two methods that can be done. One of the methods is, depending on the size of your company, you can have a payroll system. Now, the payroll system automatically calculates the tax for your employees depending on the income that you declare on it. Alternatively, if you're a small scale company and you don't have a payroll system in place, then you can use the manual process. Now, the manual process is by going onto the SARS website and downloading our tax tables. Now, our tax tables are we have your weekly, fortnightly, monthly, and we have your annual tax table. So depending on the income that the individual earns or the employee earns, you will need to use those tables to determine the tax payable. Now, when you determine the tax and you withhold it from the employer is required to pay that over to SARS, okay, by the 7th of the following month. Now, if the 7th falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or public holiday, then you have to submit and make a payment by the last business day, okay? Also, your obligation, as soon as you register for employees tax, you're also required to do reconciliations. You got your annual and you got your interim reconciliation seasons that needs to be met. Okay, when you're doing the reconciliation, it'll be your EMP 501s, and that's in conjunction with the IRP5s and the IT3A certificates for employees. Okay, so just to talk about the IRP5s. The IRP5s are certificates for employees that will have all their income, all their deductions, and it's a certificate issued where tax was deducted or paid. An IT3A certificate is where no tax was deducted. Okay. Also, with regards to payments, now you're required to pay by the 7th of each month. And as I've mentioned, if the 7th falls on a Saturday, Sunday, a public holiday, you have to make payment by the last business day. If you make a late payment, then we will levy a 10% penalty on it. Okay. And we'll also have additional interest that we will impose if you fail to pay on time. Also, if an employer withholds tax, okay, that means they withhold the PAYE from the employees, but neglects to pay it over the SARS and declare it over the SARS. Okay, and we might find you guilty of an offense, and upon conviction, we can fine you or imprison you for not period not exceeding 2 years. Now, remember, the PAYE that you're deducting, it's not yours as an employee to utilize to run your business. It's an amount that you deducted from employees, and it's required to pay paid over to SARS. And if you fail to do so on time, we will impose the penalties. And as informed as well, we could fine or imprison you. Okay. Then we have the completion of the returns, or what we refer to as a declaration. Now, when you register for PAYE, you will be required to submit a monthly declaration, which is referred to as the EMP 201. Now, the EMP 201 declaration can be done on the e-filing system or on the SARS EasyFile software. Okay, it has to be done monthly, and as I've mentioned, it has to be done by the 7th of the following month. Now, the EMP 201 is a monthly declaration. Okay, that's where you deduct your PAYE, UF, and SDL, and you declare it, and you make your payment on that. Then you are required to do what we refer to as an interim reconciliation period declaration, okay, which we refer to as a biannual submission. Now, the biannual submission, for example, a tax year runs from March till end of February. So that's a full 12 months. The biannual covers for the first 6 months. That means from March up until August. Now, that biannual declaration needs to be submitted by the 31st of October. Okay, and that will have a period ending your 08. Then you have what we refer to as your annual reconciliation period. This is for your full tax year that runs from March up until the end of February. That declaration has to be submitted by the 31st of May. That will be your O2 period. Okay. Now, the declaration of the EMP 201, once you're registered for PAYE, you have to go onto your SARS e-filing system and activate it under your tax types. That means you have to go to manage tax types and you have to activate it. Once it's successfully activated, then you can go on e-filing and go to returns issued, EMP 201s, and you select on a drop-down menu and you click request return. Then you'll have an EMP 201 that you will need to complete. Each EMP 201 comes with a unique payment reference number, okay? And as mentioned, that return and the payment needs to be done by the 7th of the month. Then we have the EMP 501 reconciliation period. Remember, I made mention briefly on the employer's filing season. So you have your biannual submission and your annual submission. Now, it's always advisable in either you're doing the biannual or the annual submission that you as an employer work in conjunction with what we refer to as the business requirement specifications for PAYE. The current version, if I'm not mistaken, is version 21-1, and I think that was issued out in February 2022. Now we refer to that as a Bible. Reason being is it has all the information that you as an employer need to utilize in order to ensure that you have a successful reconciliation. The business requirement specification has all our updated source codes, anything that's new, anything to be removed. So if you go onto our SARS website, that's www.sars.gov.za, you can download that BRS, which we refer to. Okay. Currently, we are in the 2022-02 reconciliation season. That means from 1st of March last year up until February this year, that will be your 2022 tax year. The filing season for that period, for the 02, which is your full period, is open from the 1st of April and will end by the 31st of May. So you got less than a week to submit your EMP 501 for the 2022-02 period. Okay. With regards to the EMP 501s, or we do updates on our systems. Once it changes, once we improve our systems, our online systems, we want to ensure that all our systems are related to each other and aligned to each other. So you'll see now for those that have started completing the EMP 501s, you'll see that the form is no more in an Adobe format. It's now in an HTML5 form viewer format. So we have aligned our EasyFile software with our other electronic channels. Biannual submissions, that was due by the 31st of October last year. That means you had until the 31st of October to do your biannual. After the 28th of February, you would not have access to do that biannual submission. You'll see that it's grayed out. You won't find the option for the 08. Okay. Also, when we do software updates, we release notes. Now, those notes pertaining to what's actually new and what changes we have made onto the EasyFile software. If there's errors during production, we will, once we pick it up, we will do an update and we'll put it on a release note to say that we have changed certain validations. Okay, so it's always advisable that you go into our release notes for any software changes itself. Okay, your reconciliations for the 2022-02 period can be done on the EasyFile software, the employee software, or alternatively, if you're an employer that has less than 50 certificates and less, then you can utilize our SARS e-filing system to make your declaration. Okay. Now, when we have any changes, we put it under our what's new. So always go onto our SARS website and look at our what's new option. Okay. So under our what's new, we made a lot of adjustments. So one of the adjustments was the manual capture validations, where we identified commas were present in demographic fields. The other adjustments was where we had to align the EMP 501 file validations with regards to the tax directive fields. And also then we also made adjustments on the validation code 7007. Now 7007 refers to your ETI hours. And this will be in respect of your tax years for 2015, 2016, 2017. Okay, you'll find out all these adjustments are actually in our SARS business requirements specification document itself. Okay, so basic rules when you're doing your EMP 5.1. If you're doing it for the first time or if you've been doing it a while, always read the manual. Download our manual on EasyFile. It takes you step by step on how to download the app, what softwares that you require. Also go through the release notes that I made mention of. Okay. Also, you need to ensure that you add your local store folder, and also you need to add the form viewer app on your EasyFile. Now remember, certain computers will have antivirus or firewalls, so it might not allow for the form viewer app. You need to ensure that it allows that app. Also make sure that your computer is up to date. So that means you must ensure that you have the correct Java Adobe. All right. So if there is a software update on EasyFile, make a backup. Okay. Uninstall the software and then reinstall the software. When you reinstall, it comes through with the correct Java, it comes through with the correct Adobe. So that means at every software change, you have the correct Java and correct Adobe. Okay. Back up your work all the time. I cannot stress. Every time you close your EasyFile, do a backup. It's very important, because if you don't do a backup and you have a system problem, you might lose that data. Okay. Also, when you submit your reconciliation, always go to the Utilities 501 dashboard and click on the update. Click on the view option to see the status of your EMP 501 system. Also, when you log in onto EasyFile, always log in as the admin user, because when you set up EasyFile, you set up an admin and then you set up 2 users. So always log in as the admin user. For ETI, ensure that if you declared ETI and you submitted it correctly on the EMP21, that it pulls through on your 501 itself. Okay, I did make mention of the biannual submission. So after the 28th of February, you won't have the option to do a biannual. You will be now required to do a full submission. And the most importantly is to read and understand messages. On the EasyFile software, you might have pop-up messages that gives errors. Please read those messages. Those messages are there to tell you if there's an error, what needs to be amended, what needs to be changed in order for an accurate submission of your 501. Okay. Then we have payments. Now, e-filing or the payments for PAYE can be done on the following methods. It can be done on the e-filing system. Okay, you can do EFT payments. Alternatively, you can go into a bank and make payments, and then we have the foreign payment options. Now, if you look at the e-filing option, when you are setting up your payment option on e-filing, there's going to be a credit push option. Once you select the credit push option, you will need to set up a bank account. Now, how the credit push option works is the following. You submit a return on the system, and then it'll allow you to make a payment. Now, when you make a payment, the credit push option allows you to initiate the payment on e-filing. Okay, so that's step 1. You initiate the payment on e-filing, and then you are then required to go onto your internet banking platform and release the payment. So yet again, the credit push option is a 2-step process. Initiate the payment on e-filing and then release the payment on the internet banking platform. If you fail to release it on the internet banking platform, then that payment will be considered as not being paid. So e-filing payments, we aligned it with the following banks: your ABSAs, Bidvest, Capitec, Citibanks, FNBs. So all these banks are actually affiliated and will allow for the credit push option for e-filing payments. Okay, you also can do additional payments on utilizing the same option as well. Then you have EFT payments. So you don't want to make a payment using e-filing. You prefer to go directly onto your internet banking, and you want to make the payment on your internet banking platform. All you need to do is when you go onto your internet banking platform, you need to actually create a beneficiary, and we have preloaded beneficiary IDs. So we don't have an account number. We have what we call beneficiary IDs. For example, for PAYE, it'll be SARS-PAYE. So once you select that beneficiary ID number, then it'll request for a payment reference number. Okay, that is the PRN that you will find on your declaration. So make sure that when you're making a payment, that you're using the correct payment reference number, so the payment is allocated to the correct period and to the correct account itself. Okay. So if you don't have access to make e-filing payments, if you don't have access to do internet payments, your EFTs, then you can always go into a bank and make a payment. Make sure that when you go into the bank that you have the correct beneficiary ID and you got the correct PRN. The payments can be made at the following banks: ABSA, FNB, Nedbank, Standard Bank, and Capitec. For those companies that don't have access to e-filing, EFT payments, or not access to a local bank, then they are allowed to make foreign payments. Okay. Now, a payment advice notice is just an indication of what beneficiary ID that you need to utilize, and it'll display a unique 19-digit payment reference number. So this payment reference number is per declaration, and you need to ensure that you're utilizing the correct PRN so that your payment doesn't become unallocated. Okay, and it's a risk for possible errors that you could make on it. Now, say for example, you make a payment, but unknowingly you use the wrong payment reference number. The payment was made, so it's, if you go onto your statement of account, it's there as unallocated. Then you can request the payments to be allocated to the correct period. Okay, the following options are available for you to utilize. One is our SARS online query system, okay, which is on, you don't have to log on to SARS e-filing. It's on our SARS website itself. All you'll need to do is provide us with a proof of payment and a request in writing to allocate the payments accordingly. Alternatively, if you go onto the SARS e-filing system, you can utilize the options to allocate payments. And we have also a functionality on the EasyFile employer software for you to allocate payments. Okay, so ensure that you have proof of payment and a written request if you are utilizing the SARS online query system. Okay, then we have employment tax incentive, which Helen has briefly spoke about. So in brief, what the ETI is, or the employment tax incentive, government saw that the unemployment rate was quite high. So they wanted to encourage employers to employ youths in South Africa. So the ETI was implemented on the 1st of January, 2014. Okay, when they first introduced it, it was only for a 2-year period. But since they see it's been successful, they've extended it up until the 28th of February, 2029, which will be our new sunset date. Okay, so how does the ETI work? So ETI applies to qualifying employees that were employed on or after the 1st of October, 2013. And it has to be, if you're an eligible employer, then those employees will qualify. Okay, so the ETI is just an incentive where it when you have eligible employees, you will calculate the incentive. Okay, and this you will need to claim according to the Employment Tax Incentive Act, and if you meet those requirements of the Act, that incentive will then be used to decrease your PAYE. Okay, if an eligible employer has identified eligible employees, they can claim the ETI for a maximum of 24 months per qualifying employee. Okay, so the benefits of ETI, one, it will reduce the employee's cost of hiring young people through a cost-sharing mechanism with government by allowing you to reduce the amount of PAYE you pay while leaving the wage received by the employee unaffected. Okay, as I mentioned, you can claim the incentive for up to a maximum of 24 months for each qualifying employee itself. Also, this incentive can run concurrently with other incentives that employers might have. For example, if an employer has employees on a learnership, and that employer can claim what we refer to as a learnership allowance. They can also, that employee that's on the learnership, they can also be part of the employment tax incentive if they qualify. Okay, and as I said, it's to encourage employers to employ youth, okay, and increase unemployment of young workers. Now, the qualifying employees. Now, to qualify for ETI, the employer needs to go through his payroll and identify employees that will qualify so that he can claim the ETI. Okay. Firstly, he needs to make sure that they have a valid South African ID, asylum seeker permit, or an ID issued in terms of the Refugee Act. That employee needs to be between the ages of 18 to 29 years. Okay. However, if the employer has his business in a special economic zone, okay, so his business is set up in a special economic demarcated zone and is operating inside that special economic zone, then the 18 to 29 years of age doesn't apply. Then it means somebody that's age of 31 will be considered as a qualifying employee. Okay, if it's a domestic worker, then they will not be allowed, and is a not connected person to the employer. So when we refer to a connected person, we're referring to an individual that's related to the employer to a third degree, okay, like a father, a mother, spouse, children, family members. Okay, so if they're not connected person, then if they're a connected person, then they won't qualify. Okay, so I've also made mention of the 1st of October 2013. So the employer needs to go onto his payroll and look at employees that he employed on or after the 1st of October 2013. Okay. There's also a minimum wage applicable to the employment tax incentive. Okay, it's an amount of 2,000 Rand up to 6,499 Rand. Now, if there is a minimum wage agreement in place, that means they're getting paid less than the 2,000 Rand. Okay, we need to ensure that it meets the National Minimum Wage Act. Okay, and remember, when they're calculating the remuneration or the wage, it needs to be equivalent to an amount of 160 hours for the month. For example, if the employee was only working for 2 weeks in the month, was employed at the latter part of the month, okay, then the employee has to make that look at that income as if it was 160 hours, just to make sure to ensure that when they're calculating the employment tax incentive, they have the right remuneration that they're utilizing. Okay, the following table was applicable up until the 28th of February 2022. Now, remember, I made mention a qualifying employer can claim a maximum of 24 months. Now, this is broken down into the first 12-month calculation, and then there's a second 12-month calculation. Okay, this was up until the 28th of February 2022. Now, the following table is effective from the 1st of March 2022. That's going forward. Okay, for example, if you had an employee that was receiving a monthly remuneration between 2,000 and 4,499 Rand, the incentive for that specific employee would have been 1,500. So if you had to use an example in place, if that employer's PAYE for the month was 2,000 Rand, and this employee was qualifying, was and was allowed the 1,500. So this 2,000 rand, 1,500 rand would be set against the PAYE of 2,000 rand. Okay, therefore that employer would only be required to pay an amount of 500 rand worth of PAYE. But remember, we need to ensure that that employee met the requirements as a qualifying employee for ETI purposes. So here's your first 12-month table, and then you have your second 12-month table. Okay. So, for example, you might want, if your company ceases to trade, and we had a lot of companies that did close down because of the COVID and the pandemic. Okay, so if they consider or no longer eligible for PAYE, and that means they cease to trade as an employer, they need to inform SARS within 14 days. Okay, they need to inform us in writing by completing an EMP 123E form, which can be downloaded off our SARS website and submitted to SARS so that we can deregister for PAYE. But in order for you to be deregistered for PAYE, you need to ensure that all your tax affairs, and that means all your declarations have been made and there's no outstanding debt on the account in order for us to deregister you for PAYE. You can also deregister using the e-filing under the registration maintenance option on the e-filing system. And by clicking the deactivate on the RAV01, you'll find that under your tax types demographics. Okay. Then we have the administrations. Now, where we say, and we refer to make it hard not to comply, it refers to the obligation of the employer submitting their declaration on time. Now, I did make mention that the EMP 501 for the 2022-02 period is due by the 31st of May this year. Okay. If the employer fails to submit that declaration, we can impose an administrative penalty up to 10% of the employee's tax liability. Okay, that's if you fail to submit the declaration on time. We won't issue out a separate payment reference number. Okay, you will, however, on the statement of account, you will see the amount reflecting there. Okay, we'll also, if you're making payments with regards to a specific period and we've issued out an administrative penalty, remember the payment will be allocated first, the late penalty of 10% per period, and then it'll go to your PAYE admin penalty first, and then interest, then tax, and lastly, it'll go to your understatement penalty. So ensure that you meet the deadline of the 31st of May, 2022, so that you don't get imposed an administrative penalty of 10%. So the administrative penalty would be issued out on a notice, which is referred to as an EMP 301. We would issue that at the end of the month. You can also retrieve this notice under our SARS correspondence menu on our SARS e-filing system itself. So when you log on to SARS e-filing, you go to returns, you go to SARS correspondence, you can actually select the letter type, notice of penalty, assessment EMP 301 from the drop-down list. Okay. This is a brief overview on how the SARS correspondence screen looks. So when you log on to SARS e-filing and you click on SARS correspondence, you will get this table in front of you, depending on what you're looking for. So you click on the drop-down menu under your notice types, you can select the received date from, and then you can receive date to, and then you can click on search. Once you click on search, you'll have a list of documents or notices that we have issued, and you will select the correct type by clicking view, and it will actually display for you. Okay, so SARS correspondence is where you'll find any notices such as your EMP 301. Okay. Then we come to record keeping. Now, records must be kept for a period of 5 years from the date of submission of the return and from the end of the relevant tax period in the if the person is not required to submit a tax return. Okay, so you have to keep your documents for a period of 5 years from the date of declaration. Okay, we could request for those documentations for an audit or verification. Okay, and you must make it available for scrutiny to the commissioner. So however you keep your records, if you make copies, you can scan it and put it onto an external hard drive, or if you can scan it, and if you're into technology, you can actually save it into a cloud system. But if we request for those documentations, okay, you must be able to provide it to us when required. So keep it for a period of 5 years. Okay, so record keeping, specifically when it comes to PAYE, we would require specific information pertaining to your employees. For example, we would want the amount of remuneration paid, the employee's tax that you deducted or withheld on all your remunerations. We also would look at your UIF contributions. Income tax reference numbers for employees. Now, remember, although an employee is not liable to pay tax, that means they earn below the threshold, they still require to have an income tax number. Okay, so if they have an income tax number, you are required to, on your reconciliation, include it on it. If your employee does not have an income tax number, the employee can go on our SARS website and do the registration. That's one. Okay, alternatively, the employer can go on to the SARS e-filing and do employee registration, or they can utilize the SARS EasyFile option to do a registration for income tax numbers itself. Okay, for the purposes of ETI, please keep records of all employees that you deducted your employee tax incentive for, because we can scrutinize that if required as well. Okay, so that takes me to the end of my presentation. I'm going to hand over to the program director, who will then introduce our for the EMP 501 demonstration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Naidu, for a detailed and very informative presentation. Hashtag Your Tax Matters urges all taxpayers and traders to check the new features on the e-filing and SARS mobile app created to make your tax life easier. Remember to send through your questions to payequestions@sars.gov.za. I repeat, payequestions@sars.gov.za. Now we'll move to how-to videos presented by Mr. Fulufelo Mandiwana. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Program Director, and good evening to all our guests and all our SARS colleagues. As the guest speaker has introduced me, I'm Fulufelo, who's going to be taking you through the live presentation of how to do your EMP 501 using EasyFile. So basically, this is the EasyFile software that you can be used to do your submissions using it. So this program, basically, what you need to know is that every time, as per the previous speaker, when we introduce a new version, you would get a release note. So you need to make sure all the time that you are on the correct version in order for you to be able to do your submission. So it is very important, because if you're not on the correct version, it means that your declaration will not be ran on the current validation rules. So it means that in most of the instances when you do the submission, it might not pull through. So now to go through the demonstration on how to do the declaration. So this is basically the system that we use that we call EasyFile. So on this platform, that's where you can be able to import your CSV file that you generate from your payroll system. So your payroll system needs to make sure that it meets the current validation rules in order for your CSV file to pass importing. So I'm going to demonstrate how do you do the importing. So basically, when you open your EasyFile, you would have to put in your login credentials. Once you put in your login credentials, if you are a first-time user and your database is blank, you would not have any employer to select. So if you already have an employer to select, you would need to make sure that you select the correct employer before you import your payroll file. Because if you select the incorrect employer, it is not going to synchronize your data correctly. So this is the process of importing your payroll file. You will click on import payroll file. Once you clicked on import payroll file, you would then be able to get these particular options for you to select where to import your payroll. So remember also, this is very important. EasyFile is a local disk software. So you cannot run it on the server and expect it to work properly. So that's why you would see everything that you do, it will then prompt you to say, you need to do everything on the local C drive. So please take note of that. So when you're importing a payroll file, make sure it's either on your desktop or on your local C drive. You click on import. Once you click on import, you can read on the message there. It says only files saved on your local disk can be imported. So once you click OK, it will then take you to a dialog box where you need to import your payroll file. So you would go and look at where you saved your payroll file. So because this is a dummy presentation, you would see that we would have two examples for you to say when the payroll file, when you're importing it and it meets the validation rules, it will pass validation. If it doesn't meet the validation rules, it will fail validation. So let's look at the first one where we're importing it. It will start by providing you with a message that the file is ready for import. So that means now you are in a process of importing your payroll file. So once you click OK, it will start the validation rules to validate the information on your payroll. So it means that if your payroll meets the validation rules, the message will show as pass validation. And then once it passed validation, it means that once you click OK, it will start generating the IRP files. So when it does this, it means that it's converting your CSV file into a certificate. And then once it's done converting the file, you would see it will run another validation to see if the file meets the process. So it may take some time depending on the size of the CSV file. As you can see, it runs the validation. After it runs the validation, it validates the data. So we validate the demographical information, we validate also the incomes that have been captured or the source codes that have been captured. So once you click OK, it means that your file has passed validation. So let's look at if the file fails validation, what is it going to do? Once you click OK and you import your CSV file, the same process followed, it will run the validation. As you can see, it gives you a warning to say your file failed validation. You can check your warnings or the reason why it failed validation. So once it has passed validation or it has failed validation, you can be able to check under utilities. Once you click under utilities, you go to import payroll file log. Once you click on payroll file log, you would be able to see your file that has been imported that has failed. Once you double click on that failed error message, it will then tell you the reason and the number failed based on your payroll file. Say what has failed that you can correct from your payroll system. And then once you correct it, you would then be able to re-import the file. If it has passed validation, you will see it will not have any errors. It will tell you how many certificates have you imported, and then it will show you the certificate range. After confirming the information, what you need to do also, you need to go to employer admin. Once you click on view edit employer, you can then be able to click on edit employer just to confirm that the demographical information of the employer has been completed correctly. Because if the information has not been corrected or captured correctly, it will not allow you to do the submission. So for an example, I see that there's a special character on the name. I need to correct that. I remove the special character and I need to also choose the industry code. You will need to choose the one that is related to your company. And then once you selected it, you click OK. Once you're done, you just make sure all the rest of the information is updated, and then you click update. Then it will save the information, and then that's the first process. After doing this process, then now you can start the process of validating your certificates to check if your certificates are correct by going to employee admin, view edit employee, then you click on search. Then it will give you all the employees that you have created. So now, to cover for those who do not have employee or do not have a CSV file, you can also add certificates manually by first coming to employee admin and adding your employee. Once you click on add new employee, you would see it will open a screen like this where you would need to complete demographical information of the employee. So you would see where there's this highlighted or there's this red sign, it means that those fields are mandatory. You cannot proceed without completing the mandatory fields. Once you say next, it will then give you the demographics of the employee, which is also mandatory for you to complete, because if you don't complete this, the submission will fail validation. Banking details also mandatory, you need to complete them. Once you're done, you click on save, then your employee is created. Then you can be able to add a certificate. Once you click on add certificate, you will then be able to see a screen like this, where you can complete all the information relating to your certificate with the tax period, the year of assessment, whether it's an IRP5 or it's an IT3A, then period worked, the date, the start date and the end date. Also, you can be able to add ETI when you click on the ETI box if you need to capture your ETI. Once you click on ETI, add ETI, you will then have this field where you can complete all your ETI calculations and the remuneration so that it can pull through. Once you're done, you click on save. Then you will also have to manage your source code where you need to add your codes, your 3601s and all your pay-as-you-earn codes as per the BRS. Once you're done, you can be able to click on save. And then once you click on save, then the certificate will say successfully saved and the status will show as created. Then once it's created, that means now you can move to the process of doing your declaration. Now let's look at how do you do your declaration. You would go to reconciliation. Then you click on declaration. Once you clicked on declaration, you would then be able to select the period that you want to do the submission for. So once you select the period, as we are on 2022, you click on 2022, you would then be able to click on request. Once you click on request, then this particular screen will display where you need to always make sure that you use accept data. Reason why we say you must use accept data, it is crucial because when you accept data, you will then be able to synchronize your EMP201s that have been submitted on e-filing to EasyFile. Because remember, EasyFile is an offline system. And as it's an offline system, it means that it only becomes online when it has to retrieve information from our SARS core system, which links to e-filing. So that's why you need to use accept data. If you use own values, it means that you're going to complete the EMP501 manually, which can lead to your assessment or your reconciliation going for audit or creating an ELC case, which will go to our account maintenance for manual assessment. Because when you're capturing it manually, there is a possibility that you can change the liability by more than 10%. And once you change the liability, it means that it can be routed for a manual intervention. Reinstate ETI. This functionality has been introduced in an instance where when you're claiming ETI, you made an error and you submitted your declaration with zeros on your ETI in error, and now you want SARS to reinstate your ETI. When you click on the reinstate ETI, it will then allow you to recapture your ETI, or it will repopulate the ETI. So let's look at the declaration itself. So once you say accept data, it will give you this particular screen where you need to use your e-filing login details, which is your primary login. Once you capture your primary login, then it will then allow you to open up the form in this format, which it will be in an HTML form, which it opens in a form viewer. As per the last speaker, he advised to say, now the forms have been changed. And as the forms have been changed, it basically means that now our forms will open in HTML. So this is the form viewer. So this form, sometimes it will take some time to open depending on the speed of your computer. So just be patient, it will open. Don't close it while it's still opening, because sometimes when you close it, you are interfering with the process. So once it opens the form, you will see the demographical information of the employer. Once you complete the demographical information of the employer, you are then be able to go to the next demographics that you need to complete. If you are a tax practitioner, you complete your tax practitioner information. Then you would then be able to complete the financial particulars. So under your financial particulars, you would then be able to see your ETI claims pre-populated, also your EMP201s, your pay-as-you-earn and your SDL and your UIF. So they will come pre-populated if you accepted SARS values. Then under the payments options, Those ones, they would not pre-populate. You would need to capture them yourself manually. And then once you capture them manually, you would need to compare your certificate values with your EMP 201 annual total, whether they balance. So if they don't balance, you would be able to see there would be a difference in liability. So the difference in liability, you need to compare your annual total to your tax certificate total. That's where you would see where the difference comes from. So once you are happy with everything, you would then be able to see if there's due by you or due to you. So the due by you or due to you, it will be caused by the difference in liability. And then once you confirm that, you would then have to provide us with the reasons why there is a difference in liability. Once you provide us with the reasons, then you are able to submit your declaration. So under the declaration, it will automatically have a date. Then you don't have to sign it. It will be an electronic signature. So for you to file it, you need to go to File. Once you click on File, you click on File and Close. It will then start the initiation process of going to the submission screen. Then it will give you this message that it's ready to be submitted. You click OK. Once you click OK, then you go to the submission option. You click submission option, then it will give you the declaration that you have created. Once it gives you the declaration, you need to tick the box and then you click submit. Once you click submit, it runs other validations again to check whether it meets the validations with regarding to the BRS for the submission to pull through, whether it balances. Once it balances or it gets validated, it will then give you an option to save your declaration. You will select your destination folder. Once you select your destination folder, it will run another validation to make sure that everything is in order. Then it will prompt you to put in your e-filing login credentials in order for the submission to go through. Remember, I said EasyFile is an offline system. So it means that for your declaration to go through to SARS, you need to submit it online by connecting to your e-filing. So once you accept, put in your e-filing login details, login, then it will then process the declaration. If it's successful, it will tell you that your EMP 501, your EMP 601, your EMP 701 has been generated successfully. Then once you click OK, it means that the submission is submitted. For you to validate whether the submission has been accepted by SARS, you can then come to utilities. Then under utilities, you've got these options that are very crucial. You've got database utility. Then under database utility, you would need to make sure that you click on backup DB directory. Once you click on backup DB directory, that means it will allow you to back up your submission. And then once you have backed up your submission, it means that you would then be able to have the data as per the last speaker saying that if we need information from you, you would need to provide us with that information. For you to check your submission, whether it pulled through, you need to click EMP 501 dashboard. Once you click on the EMP 501 dashboard, then you would be able to see your declaration that you have submitted, and then you can be able to click on update. Once you click on update, it will tell you whether your declaration has been routed for manual assessment or it has been accepted. Then also you would be able to download your employment tax validation. So under your employment tax validation, that's where you would see why your declaration failed validation. But if it has not failed validation, you will not have the ETV report. So another thing that is very important on this particular screen is the option for you to generate your IRP5 under utilities. So under utilities, under generate IRP5/IT3A, you would be able to generate your IRP5s. Okay, once you have generated your IRP5s, that means you would be able to just click there and click on export. Then you select your destination folder where you want to save it. That's how you generate the IRP5s. One last thing with regarding to the software. In order for the software to work properly, you need to make sure that you come to system configuration. Make sure you tick the box that says reader, PDF with default application. So basically it means that now you are telling EasyFile it must use the Adobe Reader that is compatible to your computer that you have installed. So it means that it will then allow all PDF documents to open. And then you need to make sure that also you have a Zulu Java installed, and also that the form viewer is installed. So once you see all of that is fine, it means that your EasyFile would be working properly. And that is all with regarding to the live demonstration. I will be handing it over back to the program director. And thank you for your time and for listening to me. Back to you, program director.
Thank you, Mr. Mandiwana, for the how-to video. You have made it easy to be tax compliant. Thank you so much. For questions on both the presentation and the how-to video, please send your questions to payequestions@sars.gov.za. Now I will move to Mr. Moses Hlongwana, who's going to facilitate the question and answer session. He has a diploma in information technology and is currently pursuing a diploma in business management. He began working for SARS as a casual employee in 2005 and was promoted to portfolio maintenance 2 years later. He is knowledgeable about income tax, VAT, pay-as-you-earn, and e-filing. Moses was involved in a variety of SARS projects, including Small Business Amnesty, which introduced him to the Outreach and Campaign Division. He has held a management position in taxpayer engagement and outreach in the Northwest region since 2010. He is currently a regional revenue manager for Northwest, and he has participated in a variety of internal and external middle management training and development program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Program Director. It is indeed a privilege to be part of this webinar, which seeks to support the needs of the very important sector in our economy, the SMMEs. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We once again want to thank you for the questions that we have received, and we will do our utmost best to make sure that we answer them. Your questions do assist us to test if we are providing enough clarity of our tax obligation as the SARS strategic objective #1. Your questions also assist us to improve our processes and your tax experience as we are committed to making it easy for all taxpayers and traders to comply with their tax obligations. Ladies and gentlemen, as the program director has indicated, I am here only to facilitate the question and answer sessions. I'm not here alone. I do have a panel of experts with me. Team, I am going to ask you to please switch on your video when I call your name. Our first panelist for the evening is Elmarie Nell. Elmarie is an account maintenance team member who is looking after the pay-as-you-earn, the SDL, and the UIF accounts for the employers. Welcome, Elmarie.
Good evening, everybody.
Our second panelist is Fulufelo Mandaweni. Fulufelo is our support team for SARS e-filing and EasyFile. Welcome again, Fulu.
Thank you, Moses, and good evening again, once more again, to our guests.
Our third panelist is Neil Nell. Neil is our senior specialist in stakeholder management. He is responsible for the relationship with the employers and has assisted in the core system design of both pay-as-you-earn, SDL, and UIF. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Slongwane. Good evening to all participants.
And our fourth panelist is Cheryl Greylen. Cheryl is our manager in business systems, who's taking care of our systems to making sure that they are still working in a good conditions. Welcome, Cheryl. Cheryl,
Thank you. Good evening.
Yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
All right. Thanks, colleagues. Let me also reiterate that we do have other panelists that are busy with the chats on the Q&A, and so please continue to send your questions on the platform via and also via the email, which is the PAYE questions@sars.gov.za. payequestions@sars.gov.za. Please note that this email address is only for the webinar related questions and will be closed immediately after this session. For any service escalations, please visit our website. To our viewers and also to my panel, allow me to start with the questions that I have noted on the Q&A. And I've realized that there are two questions that our panelists requested that to answer them live. The first question was from, is it Giselle Strado? He says, please let us know how to generate IRP5s for employers who are not paying pay-as-you-earn and has only U-filing and not pay-as-you-earn, so not registered for pay-as-you-earn. Is there a manual IRP5 that can be generated, or must this also be done on EasyFile? Neil?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Longwane. Perhaps just on the specific question, if not registered for pay-as-you-earn purposes or PAYE purposes, then I assume that it is IT3As that needs to be issued. The employer can use EasyFile and use the income tax reference number instead of a pay-as-you-earn reference number, seeing that the employer is not registered. And by using EasyFile, create the relevant IT3As to be issued to the, well, to be submitted to SARS and to be issued to employees.
Okay. Thank you, Neil. I think as well, Mr. Stradom, if you have more follow-up questions, maybe what you can do as well, you can still send your request to the PAYE at questions@sars.gov.za, and hopefully we will come back to you within the period that will be better for you. Our second question on the chat was from Johannes Theron, and also I don't know if Ayanda Takela requested to answer it live. The question reads, when we submit the EMP 501, we receive a letter, employment tax certificate validation feedback, that state that there are errors. If we look, all is correct and we cannot submit a correction. Ayanda Takela, can you kindly also switch on your camera and answer the question, ma'am?
Thank you, Moses, for the opportunity to respond to this question. Okay, basically what's happening is that, as we said, we are running validations. So what happens is that in the current events, when an employer submits the declaration and they do not capture tax numbers on their declaration, it means that it's going to run a validation. Because now the system is expecting that that field needs to have a tax number, it will then throw out as if it's a duplicate, because if the tax numbers are not captured, it means that if other employers are not capturing the tax numbers also, when the system tries to run validation, it will pick it up as if it's a duplicate.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fulu. Let me then go to the question that we have received from our email address. The first question reads, I have lost the records for the reconciliation that I submitted in 2015 and 5 years has passed. How can SARS advise? Elmarie, can you assist with that question?
Okay. If the reconciliation for 2015 was submitted and processed successfully, you can request a copy for this MP501 from your nearest branch office. If there's not too many IP5 certificates, they can also issue the and print out the IP5 for you. Otherwise, what we usually do is we draw up a schedule with the IP5 certificates and then the total tax that was paid over with the employees' names on the schedule then.
Okay. Thank you, Elmarie. Let me read the second question that we've received, and I'll check on the chat. And let me also request for my panelists on the chat to check the Q&A chats as well as the chat. The second question says, my client resigned and cashed out policies at the same time. Which code must I use? Neil? Neil, can you unmute? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Longwane. Employers and retirement funds, they usually allocate the codes as per the prescribed codes in the SARS business requirements specification. Where policy payouts was made, and there was no RP5 or IT3A certificate issued, the employee taxpayer or the employee, when he completes his income tax return, should then declare that policy payouts under the appropriate container on the RTR12 return. Now, there's two specific containers that makes provision for other, and the two containers are named other taxable receipts and accruals, or alternatively, if it's not taxable payments, amounts considered not taxable. Now, there's space under those two containers for other, plus the description of the payment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Neil. The third question reads, I have just requested a pay-as-you-earn statement of account on e-filing, and I have unallocated payments. What PRN number do I use for the unallocated credit balance on my account? I have just requested a pay-as-you-earn statement of account on e-filing, and I have unallocated payments. What PRN number do I use for the unallocated credit balance on my account? Elmarie, can you assist with that?
Unallocated payments on your statement of account, it means that you've issued the paid over with the wrong PRN number. What you can do is you can send us a request. We can allocate it in the amount to the correct period for you. Then they also, on submission of your MP501, if there's an overpayment as a difference completed on the 501, this will create a credit. This credit will go under unallocated payments. With this scenario, what you can do is you can either request a refund for the unallocated payment, okay, or otherwise you can ask us to allocate this payment for you to your next payment period where you can deduct this payment. Okay. Just a reminder to the clients, if you request a refund, you must give us a valid reason for the overpayment, not just like overpayment on your 501. It must be a valid reason before we can pay out the refund for you.
Okay. Thank you, Elmarie. I hope that our viewers have taken note of that. I've got another question which says that the PDF, I think this is system related, the PDF cannot be displayed. Error code, Adobe Reader is detected, but the version is too old. Fulu, I think that will go to you.
Thank you, Moses, once more again. So with regard to the PDF reader, as you have seen with my demonstration, I've mentioned that it's very important to make sure that you enable the tick boxes under systems utility. So you need to make sure that the PDF tick box is ticks under system configuration, and also the Java Zulu is also installed. That will resolve the issue. Thank you, Moses.
Thank you, Fulu. Let me encourage also our panelists online to continue to assist with the questions that are flooding on our Q&A line, and as well as on our chats. And thank you, our viewers, again, for the questions that you are sending to us. Your questions are very important to us as they help us to build up our frequently asked questions. Please note that the SARS has a dedicated service channel for SMMEs where you can easily find information to assist you with your tax obligations. This dedicated SMME webpage on SARS website, www.sars.gov.za, www.sars.gov.za. You will also find a link to SMME webpage on the landscape. You can also as well contact our contact center on 0800 00 7277, 0800 00 7277, or you can also make an appointment to our website by choosing the SMME options and make an appointment there. Let me go back to the questions that we have. It says, I have just received an excessive liability letter. What could be the reason? Yeah, what could be the reason? What action do I need to take to rectify that on my account? Elmarie?
An excessive liability letter is sent out as soon as the MP501 has been submitted. What does an ELC letter mean? It's when you submit your MP501 with the liabilities, and it differs from the MP201's liabilities that you submitted. Actions to be taken for this is you'll have to go and investigate if you've submitted the MP501 with the correct liabilities.
Okay.
If not, you'll have to submit a revised MP501. If the liabilities is correct, according to the 501 submitted, just a letter for us stating that we must accept your MP501 as is.
Okay. Thank you, Elmarie. The next question, it's on ETV. It says, I get an ETV report that says incorrect data for tax directive. Cheryl, can you assist with that?
So the ETV report verifies some fields, the directive number, and when it is found, it compares the information. When you do get that error, just make sure that the information you have submitted corresponds to your directive letter. And when it does, there's no need for action. The reconciliation will be accepted, it does process, and it will not affect your individuals on filing.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. I'm trying to check also on our chat if there is any question that might need to be live. There is one question as well from Nikesh Kosai. He's saying, good day, I submitted my EMP501 recon and the message on the EasyFile is reconciliation submitted contained excessive liability and was routed for manual intervention. Cheryl?
It touches on Elmarie's answer. Okay. Excessive liability cases created when there's not differences on the EMP501 as such, but when it's compared to the account.
Okay.
So if you, for instance, submitted a return in March for 100 Rand on your 201 and you're declaring 10,000 Rand now on the EMP501, okay. Or when the certificates excessively differ.
All right. Thank you, Cheryl. Please continue to send your questions on the Q&A line as well as on our chat line, and our panelists will also be assisting in answering the questions. As an employer, we are informed that SARS has not handed the money over to Department of Labor. How long does it take? Neil, can you assist with that question?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Mr. Slongwane. It normally takes approximately 30 to 31 days if payments are submitted by the due dates. Okay. For example, or let me say firstly, SARS does data extracts on a monthly basis, and those extracts are processed the first full weekend of a month following the calendar month during which the payment was received by SARS. Let's take an example. The payment for April was due not later than the 6th of May, which was on a Friday. And the data extract will run over the weekend of 4 and 5 June. And then the data is provided to the UI Commissioner or Department of Labour for that matter by Tuesday, 7th of June. So if you take 6th of May to 7th of June, it's exactly your 30-day, 31-day turnaround time.
Okay. Thank you, Neil. I hope that our viewers has listened to that and taken note on that. EasyFile, that's for Fulu. EasyFile keep on shutting down when trying to submit a file. Once the password dialog open, the program just closes. Fulu, can you assist with that answer, with that question, sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Hlongwane. Okay, basically the error that is causing all of that, it has to do with the Adobe and the Java. So they just need to make sure that those particular fields are ticked under the system configuration. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Fulu. My employees tried to claim from Department of Labor. I think there's a follow-up. My employees tried to claim from Department of Labor, and they told them, which means the Department of Labor told them that they are not registered. Kindly advise. Neil?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hlongwane. I think this question actually links to the first presentation, where it was said that employers are required to also register with the UI Commissioner, even though they have registered with SARS, and to submit detail of all the employees. That's in fact to register the employees in the UIF. Now, I assume that in this specific case, the employer did not register the employees with the UIF. And I suggest that the employer check whether those submissions was in fact submitted to the UIF to register the employees in the UIF to enable them to claim benefits.
All right. Thank you so much, Neil. I hope our viewers are listening to that. I've got two more questions from our email, dedicated email. I submitted the EMP 501, but cannot generate the IRP5s. I don't know if this question was answered, but Fulu, can you answer this question again for us?
Thank you, Moses. Okay, once more again, once you can't generate IRP5s or you can't print out your declaration, basically the issue has to do with your Adobe, that you need to just go under systems utility and tick the boxes and just make sure that the Java version is correct. Then you can be able to generate and print. Thank you, Moses.
All right. Thank you, Fulu. The last question that I have from our lines, it says the taxpayer declares the ETI on the EMP 201, and during the reconciliation, they realize that they have made an error. Can they correct the ETI on the recon to increase their ETI, which was under-declared in the EMP 201? Cheryl?
As per the ETI rules, ETI must be submitted and claimed on the EMP 201 by the due date for the relevant period. So by the time the EMP 501 is submitted, those dates have passed, and therefore the ETI cannot be increased.
Okay. Thank you so much, Cheryl. That concludes the questions that we have received, but continue to submit on the Q&A line and as well on the chat line, and our panelists will continue to answer your questions. Thank you so much, my colleagues, the panelists, as well as the program director, for giving us this opportunity to give the viewers an opportunity to ask questions, and for the viewers for the questions that they have sent. Back to you, program director.
Thank you. You are still with hashtag Your Tax Matters. Thank you, Mr. Hlongwane and the panel. Your input and time is truly appreciated. Please do not forget to complete the surveys attached to your invitation. These surveys will assist SARS to improve on the service delivery and make your tax life easy. Now I will hand over to Ms. Helen to give us a closing remarks. Over to you, Helen.
A big thank you to my fellow colleagues, Mr. Naidu and Mr. Mandiwana, for sharing such a well-informed presentation. And thank you to our panelists and the viewers. I hope your questions were answered. We hope this presentation has assisted. I would also like to say that the employers now understand the roles and obligations, and again, understand the process of filing the annual reconciliation, and that they are made aware of the changes which has been shared this evening. It is worth mentioning that pay-as-you-earn remains one of our biggest contributing revenue, and without this revenue, we would neither have money nor resources to assist government to deliver services to our fellow South Africans. We also want to thank taxpayers who continue to work with SARS and comply with their tax obligations. In conclusion, I would also like to say thank you for attending this webinar, and also thanks to the organizing team who made this webinar a success. And also thanks to the communication team, media participants, and obviously our panels and the organizers. I believe that great things do happen when we work together in building this nation. And finally, as SARS, we are at your service and your tax matters. And as a polite gesture, I once again say thank you. Ria leboga, baya danki. Good night. Over to the program director.
Thank you, Helen. It's been an honor and a privilege to be among all of you. And thank you for joining us and staying with us. Hashtag your tax matters. Good evening and goodbye.
Fellow South Africans, I'm addressing you.
All your years of paying tax, you still wonder, why does it matter?
It is true that we are facing a great emergency.
It matters now more than ever. It matters to those who are exposed to harm to keep us away from it. The ones that leave behind all that they love. Your tax matters to them. Those who spend endless hours standing on their feet to care for others. It matters to those who are always at the heart of any crisis and our future generations. It matters to those who put so much love into giving selflessly to each and every family living on the breadline. It matters to all of us. To all taxpayers, pay your fair share. Do it for your nation. Your tax matters.